Thank you, Jason. We'll begin with a special meeting of the Cunningham Township Board, and that'll be followed immediately by the regular meeting of the City Council Committee of the Whole. That'll be chaired by Eric Sachs. So I would like to call to order this meeting of the Cunningham Town Board. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustees Wu,
Here.
Sachs,
Here.
Percy,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Roberts,
Here.
Colebrook,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Chair Marlin,
Here.
and Danielle Chenoweth.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is public participation. If anyone wishes to address the Cunningham Town Board, please raise your hand. Grace Wilkin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Grace Wilkin. I'm an Urbana resident. And I just wanted to say in support of this budget proposal that I had seen in the email, and if anything, just to state that I would love to see even more resources for housing and community assistance, particularly with some of the line items that are direct funding, like emergency access funding, transition housing, public services. I would love to see more funding if possible for those direct services, and definitely support the spending and would love to see even more. Thank you.
Okay. And I believe those comments would be directed toward the action plan, which is on the Committee of the Whole agenda, but those will be noted as well. Thank you. Next up is James Corbin.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, all right, thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to concur a lot with what Grace said as far as the funding go, as far as the direct funding and the transitional housing. And I would like to add a piece to address the youth violence we have been seeing in our neighborhoods. We have been, we see it's on the rise, and we need more programs that can adhere to this, such as strengthening youth skills, that type of program. We could look at universal school-based programs, also programs that help them build their skill level in the trades. We could also look at creative protective community environments. And this, I'm reading this actually from the CDC, which is recommended off their page of preventing youth violence. And a strategy or approach that we could use would be to modify the physical and social environment. And we could also reduce exposure to community level risk. And I think that's a big one that we need to kind of focus on, that we could put, direct some of the funds toward that. And, just tying these guys into more positive things that they could do with the activities. One of the biggest problems I see in this community is there are no activities for the youth. We need to create some activities, something where they could socialize on a positive level, as well as get them involved with more community things. Maybe they could come up with some ideas and start building toward things. We used to have talent shows, as well as other shows in the community, that can like put their talents on display. We have some wonderful talent here, but it's not being utilized. It's not being put on platform. It's just laying there, and then we keep going over the same thing of somebody got shot this week, or there's been a shooting. We have to put more money and resources toward these type of programs that could help. And we have groups already out here that are trying to do that, but they need help doing that. They need, it takes money to do these things, to bring in speakers, talkers. We can even bring in different entertainers to kind of sway a lot of this thinking. I would just like us to consider that. And also, I would like to add, also have an educational component to this, because I have personally been experienced street violence. I was shot 1991. That's why I'm paralyzed now. And I know that learning more about myself, self-education, as well as learning about past history, things like that, that reconnected me to the community. A lot of these young men are not connected to the community and they feel separated. We have to reconnect them and show that there is a whole here. You can't think on a self-centered level. And I would just would like us to consider that. That's all. I'm done. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, City Council, for allowing me to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Town Board? Okay, we'll move on to the agenda item, which is one item, resolution number T 2021-04, and it should be -006, which is a resolution authorizing the town supervisor to execute a lease agreement with the city of Urbana for 202 Wood Street, Urbana, for the use as a solidarity garden. Danielle?
Just quickly, this was tabled from last week. But the short version of the story for both the public and the town board is that last year, Cunningham Township launched a collaboration initiative with Sola Gracia Farms, Channing Murray Foundation, the Urbana Park District, the Urbana Free Library. We work with Carl and other organizations and gardens throughout the community dedicated to reducing food insecurity in Champaign-Urbana. We help to support individuals and groups to turn private and public land into gardens. We do it 1 square foot at a time. We produce thousands of pounds of groceries, of fresh produce that we distributed through Sola Gracia's mobile pantry, which is funded through Cunningham Township, as well as through the Channing Murray Foundation Bucket Brigade, which is also funded through Township. So we were able to move a lot of fresh vegetables during the pandemic at a time when folks weren't able to necessarily come to food pantries. What we learned is that there's a lot of people who, food pantries are usually not full of fresh vegetables. We'd like to resource those pantries better, and we'd like to continue to deliver to folks who can't make it to a pantry. So we're looking for additional land to expand into. We have a number of plots at Meadowbrook Garden. We have plots at Victory Garden. Thanks to the Park District, we have private plots. We even have a plot out in Monticello that has been contributing. And then, of course, the Township Garden, which is rented from the library. And we appreciate the library for giving that to us for $1 a year. So the city of Urbana put forward a RFP for 202 Wood Street. It is 1/3 of an acre on Wood Street. It's kind of nested between Central Avenue and Griggs Street. It's very close to a neighborhood where we have a number of participants because Homestead Apartments is close to there. That's a single resident occupancy focused on supporting formerly homeless residents. And it's we're excited to grow in that location because there's a lot of opportunities and potential to connect with the neighborhood. So we submitted that RFP as Solidarity Gardens, and the township has agreed to be the responsible party and lessee. As I said before, if Solidarity Gardens goes away, township will continue to be the responsible party. This lease is a 2-year lease. We can terminate either party, the city or township, with 90 days notice. It's $1 a year contribution, and essentially the township bears the cost of improvements to the space, including water and whatnot. We do have several donations right now of water to the property. I believe those donations will last that 2-year lease. If it looks like we're going to extend, we may consider in the future, in a future budget, doing a water installation. The estimate I was given is about $1,000, so it's not overly onerous to install water at that location. We're really excited to work with, I'm actually having a meeting with Urbana Public Arts Program coordinator and the library and the Park District on Thursday on location. If you do approve this lease, so that we can start the community-based process of talking to the neighborhood about what they would like to see. So year one is going to be very much focused on building support and doing collaborative design. There will be some level of food production, but it's a little late to get started on that. And we'll let one of the neighbors who's interested in producing food for his wedding use it for that purpose. But year two is when we'll get there in earnest. And the city is not anticipating that they will use this floodplain anytime soon. So we're hopeful that we can develop a robust community garden. Township will either continue to operate the garden, or if there is a community-based group in the neighborhood that really kind of grows up around the garden, we could also consider working with the city to transfer that lease. That would be some years out. So that's basically what we're looking at. We're just asking for, I'm asking for your approval to sign the lease that is before you. The final one was the version that I sent that's also linked off the town board website and has been there since Thursday. And there's a site plan, and the site plan frankly is pretty nondescript at this point. We're going to do a community-based design and most likely come back to the city with a updated design that they will then need to sign off on before we can, start making those. But it's a preliminary sketch that gives you a sense of what we're thinking about. Happy to take any questions you have.
Mary Alice.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Danielle. I took a look at the lease, and one of the things that I had a question about was section 8F. So section 8F is the one that says when participants may garden at their own convenience, and that starts at 5 a.m. So I was hoping that could change to 7 a.m. or there could be some addendum that says you can't use equipment before 7 a.m. just to be inconsistent with the construction hours that we have in the city.
That would be fine with us. I'm not really planning on early morning gardening. That's a time frame that the city stipulated. So if the town board wants to change that to 7, I don't think there's an issue with that. I mean, there I guess is the one that probably the reason they put it there is so that there would be time before people go to work where they could garden while there's light outside, especially in the summer. But maybe what you could consider is saying there's no electric lighting. There's actually the only thing that could make noise at this location would be gas powered because there's no electricity on location. So you could say, and let's see, actually, I'm wondering if it's handled in a different section because it also says that we have to follow all city rules. And part of the city rules is that you cannot have noise before, I believe it's 7 o'clock. Yes, so if you look at 8A, it says the township shall at all times observe and comply with all laws, ordinances, and regulations of the federal, state, county, and local governments. That would take care of actually noise before 7. But I think the thought is if somebody wanted to go out and dig before they go to work in the garden, they could do that when it's light out.
7A also mentions that too, Mary Alice. Any activity constituting a nuisance according to city code.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, it just wasn't specified in the hours of operation there. I mean, either way is fine with me if you want to keep it at 5 a.m. I do think that it might be good to have it explicit that no loud noise would occur before 7 a.m.
Would it, since the people who are using the garden are not going to be reading the lease, would it solve the concern if so I have everyone who's participating in the gardens, basically look at the rules and regulations, and I can put that in the rules of regulations since it is covered in the lease under the township ordinances, both 7A and 8A. I mean, you can add it if you want. It just means I have
No,
to
as
have
long as it's
additional legal review.
as long as the people are who are going to be working on the land are aware of those, because otherwise there's a lot of things in our city code. But so I think hours of operation, at least in terms of what type of noise can happen before 7 a.m.
Okay, well, I can certainly include that in the orientation that we do for folks who are gardening. And that
Okay.
makes a lot of sense because I used to have that problem with my neighbor. And it did start at 5 o'clock and it was a nuisance. So I understand.
I think Scott wanted to add.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just the background on where that particular language comes from, that's in the lease for the Lehrman garden. So I didn't write the Lehrman garden lease. I did write this one. So I think, as Danielle described, that the idea was to get some early morning gardening in when the sun's up early. But I understand your concern, Mary Alice. I believe my recollection is that the noise ordinance applies to stationary mechanical noise. So someone with a gas powered tiller, I'm not sure that that would apply. And so I think it may be a good idea to put something in about gas powered equipment, outside of the those particular hours. I'm perfectly happy with that.
And Danielle, I do think that having that in the orientation material for the people who are working, I think kind of solves that, because the noise ordinance certainly is a bit broader in the city, but the 7 a.m. construction is more specific. So as long as that's included in the orientation information, that addresses my concern.
Any other questions? Dennis?
Yeah, Danielle, the other concern that might be of importance would be removal of waste that's accumulating at the site. Is there going to be a garbage service? Or, I mean, I know that the organic things can be composted at the site, but, there might be lunch, wrappers and bags and things like that. Do you have something that will coordinate removal of various trash?
Well, we're responsible for mowing on location, so there'll be regular visiting of the site for that purpose. We're not allowed to put anything that is permanent structures without approval of the city, but I doubt very seriously that the city would disapprove of a trash container at that location. We would probably want to make it look pretty, but other than that,
Sure.
yes, we can take care of that. But there, we'll have regular, it isn't right next to the township, so it'll be important that we have someone going over and making sure that they're taking care of weeds and long grass, and they can also remove trash at that time.
Does that mean that you're also going to be responsible for lawn mowing around the garden edges?
Yeah, so we're responsible for mowing it. Right now, the city is responsible, and one of the things I think is in the interest of the city is to change that responsibility, give an opportunity and also offload that responsibility. And we're happy to take that on. I already have lawn mowing service and I can extend it without
great.
location.
Those requirements are outlined in 8B.
Okay, great.
Bill?
Yeah, just a couple of questions I was curious about. One is, I know it's in the floodplain. Do you know how often it floods there?
That's a Scott question.
I don't recall it being flooded there since I've been here. I don't know that we have good records on that either. I'm not sure that it floods very often at all since the Bonnier Creek improvements made upstream in Champaign.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the other question, we're requiring 9 square feet for butterfly and pollinator garden out of a 16,000 square foot lot. Is there something magical about 9 square feet besides it being a square yard that we picked that number?
It's the size of a garden, raised garden bed. That's about the only reason. We just wanted to establish some minimum. They can go further. Supporting monarchs and pollinators is part of the citywide agenda and the mayor's monarch pledge.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd encourage more. I mean, it's hardly worth doing it for 9 square feet. But if you're gonna put in some milkweed and other plants, it seems like you could probably do a little bit more than that.
Well, once you plant 9 square feet, it soon becomes more. So
Just spread them out so they can have room to grow. Spread each square foot out.
Any other is that it for your questions, Bill? Okay, any other questions? Dennis?
Oh, yeah, that brought up something else. At the Lehrman Garden, the people are not allowed to put in perennials, i.e. plants that come up year after year. Is that going to affect this garden as well in some of your plans?
No, that's not a constraint of this garden. And we intend to have a combination of both. We are not allowed to grow trees, but it's not our intention to grow an orchard at this location.
Okay, thanks.
Is someone ready to make a motion? Mary Alice?
I was just getting ready to make a motion. I move approval of resolution T 2021-04-006R, resolution authorizing the township supervisor to execute a lease agreement with the city of Urbana for 202 Wood Street, Urbana, for the use of a solidarity garden.
I'd like to second.
Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Dennis. Further discussion. Bill Colbrook.
Just a comment. I think this is an excellent idea, and I'd like to see more of this for our community. And also, whoever hand drew your site plan, kudos to them, because they're a pretty good artist, and I could understand it from the sketches. So kudos.
That was Tracy Berkeley from Sola Gracia, and I agree. I also appreciate your confidence, and I will announce that we're looking for both volunteers and interns for the garden. So anyone who is listening or on town board who wants to get their hands dirty, looking at you, Bill, you're welcome to join us. We could really use some folks digging in this summer. So let us know if you want to participate or send some folks our way. I'm still looking for some interns.
Oh, Sharice is volunteering.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Not right now. But on that note, I was thinking about what the gentleman during public input said as far as programs for the youth. I think that if there's a way that something getting their hands dirty, putting their fingers in the dirt and learning how to grow food, that I think that would be a good internship or a good program that you might want to pick up on and actually literally teach children the fruits of their labors. So
absolutely. Canaan Baptist Church is down the street. And I spoke to Jennifer Ivory Tatum, who's the school superintendent, whose family is also pastoring that church. And we've started that conversation because adult ed is also next to the location. So we're starting that conversation. I would love to get youth from the academy involved or other youth in the area, but certainly the youth that are right there in that neighborhood 5 days a week.
Yeah, it makes it's just something that I thought about from when I first got on the city council and they had the Fresh Start program. And I know that the gentleman that was talking, I believe he's with First Followers. And I think this would be a good stepping stone as far as occupying the time and for them to actually, for people to actually be able to appreciate the hard labor that goes into producing food.
Mhm.
And not to mention, it'll also be a great biology type of lesson.
Absolutely. Yeah, well stated. And I will let the town board and the public know when we have those public input sessions that I will bring the ideas that you've brought up at that, into those sessions, and then also encourage you all to, speak up in those spaces as well, along with the community to see, what is needed and desired and how can we put legs under it.
And I will let you know that Mayor Finan and I met with Representative Ammons this afternoon, and there may be funding available for supporting youth working in things like this garden and other summer programs as well. So
That's great. Yes,
So,
send me some more information. Thank you.
it might all come together. So any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Sachs,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
That motion passes. And with no further business before the Cunningham Town Board, I will adjourn that meeting and we will turn it over to Mr. Sachs for the City Council Committee of the Whole meeting.
Good evening. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening. We'll see you.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Urbana City Council Committee of the Whole. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Sachs,
Here.
Ms. Hersey,
Here.
Mr. Brown,
Here.
Mr. Roberts,
Here.
Mr. Colebrook,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Here.
First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from April 5, 2021.
I'll move approval of those minutes.
I'll second.
So we have Mary Alice making the motion and Jared seconding. Any additions or to the minutes? Or
We should vote for that approval.
okay, so will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Sachs,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey, Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is, are there any additions to the agenda? Mayor.
Chair Sachs, I do have a request to add a proclamation to the agenda and that it be put under before the council member training session.
Do we have a motion?
I move to approve that change. Is that it?
I'll second.
Okay. Clerk, may you please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Sachs,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're on to the public input and presentations. We have the proclamation.
Thank you. And this is in honor of administrative professionals everywhere. Whereas administrative professionals play an essential role in coordinating the office operations of businesses, government, educational institutions, and other organizations in the city of Urbana. And whereas the work of administrative professionals today requires advanced knowledge and expertise in communications, computer software, office technology, project management, organization, customer service, and other vital office management responsibilities. And most importantly, they have the willingness to learn and accept new challenges. And in the past year, that has been a vitally important quality for our administrative professionals. Whereas administrative professionals are vital contributors in today's team-oriented work environment and are key frontline public relations ambassadors for their organizations. And whereas the International Association of Administrative Professionals has honored the important contributions of administrative support staff since 1952 and recognizes the integral and central role that these professionals play in modern business. And whereas Administrative workers at all levels are recognized for their hard work behind and directly in front of the scenes, making sure things run smoothly throughout their organizations. And whereas the city of Urbana salutes all of the amazing admins who positively contribute to our city offices and dedicate themselves to the administrative profession. Now, therefore, I, Diane Wolf Marlin, Mayor of the city of Urbana, Illinois, do hereby proclaim April 18th through 24th, 2021 as Administrative Professionals Week in the city of Urbana, Illinois. And we sincerely thank the administrative professionals who work for the city of Urbana and throughout our community to keep things running. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda, we have a council member training session with Human Resources and the Finance Department.
Yes, we do. And before we begin, I'm going to ask if Jason could promote Shannon Clark to a panelist. I think she's still in the other section of the website, but she's an important part of the presentation. Okay, perfect. So thank you for giving us a little bit of time tonight to talk about what we do in HR and finance. As you may or may not know, we always had a finance department, but about a year ago, we reorganized a bit and we combined HR and finance together. So, oops, I'm going to show you my screen here. Okay, that should be up there. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we are the HR and Finance Department, and for purposes of this presentation, we've organized this into 4 sections, which will include finance functions, human resources functions, labor and employee relations functions, and then administration. And we will talk you through each of those. But first, we're going to take a quick look at our org chart. And as you can see, we're approximately 20 employees. And in this group, you can see Shannon Clark. She's our Deputy Finance Director, and she has responsibility for all of our finance, customer service, and parking enforcement. Michelle Brooks is our Labor and Employee Relations Manager. And then Liz Borman is our HR Manager. So we work with several boards and commissions. The Civil Service Commission is staffed by Liz Borman, who is our HR Manager, and they meet once a month towards the end of the month. We also work with the police and fire pension funds. I am appointed by the mayor to both of those boards, and I'm also the treasurer for both of those pension funds. So just by way of information, those pension funds are constituted under state law, and each of those funds has a board that's made up of 5 members, including 2 active employees, so police officers or firefighters, 1 retired employee, and then 2 individuals who are appointed by the mayor. We are funded primarily from the general fund. However, we also manage a couple of other funds, more or less kind of up for the organization as a whole. We manage the Vehicle and Equipment Replacement Fund, and we also manage the Retained Risk Fund, which we'll talk about briefly later when we talk about what we do under administration. So one of the things we were asked to speak to is why the comp plan is important to us. So HR and finance is really all about resources, about human resources, the people that work for the city, and it's about financial resources, which is also an important part of how we get things done. So the comp plan will guide fiscal planning and allocation of our financial and human resources for many years to come. And it will also help us to define our employment brand. So when potential applicants, are thinking about applying for work with the city, they often they're not just looking at, what's in the job description and how much am I going to get paid. They're also looking at the community as a whole, and is this the kind of place where I want to live and work. So we're gonna kick this off by talking a little bit about the finance side of the house, and Shannon Clark is here to do that. So I will let her take over for the next few slides.
Okay, thank you. So there are 12 employees in the finance department that were shown on the left side of that org chart there, made up of 3 work teams. These teams include customer service, parking enforcement, and financial services. So the customer service department handles general finance related and parking inquiries and processes payments to the city from various city departments. The customer service team is staffed with 3 employees, and the responsibilities of this office include the daily collection of city issued fines and fees related to parking tickets, violations, permits, space rentals, and meter bagging. We also process permit, fine, and fee payments for other city departments. Many of these payments can be made online through our website, which has been convenient for citizens due to COVID. Customer service also handles parking ticket disputes, as there is a process to dispute tickets online to ensure fairness and compliance with parking enforcement activities. So this team works closely together with parking enforcement, which I'll talk about next. So the parking enforcement office is staffed with 3 full-time employees. Parking enforcement applies the city's ordinances around these activities to ensure that parking is available to citizens and visitors in the city of Urbana when needed. Enforcement activities include ticketing for expired meters, parking violations in permit areas, and other parking violations, which include parking in disabled spaces, parking too close to the corner, abandoned vehicles, and other violations on city property as examples. Next is the financial services team, which is staffed with 4 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. This area handles various accounting related duties, which include processing and dispersing payments to vendors and the associated 1099 forms, processing and dispersing employee payroll checks and the associated year-end W-2s, ensuring that available city cash is deposited and invested per policy, billing and collecting taxes and other city revenues. Examples include local food and beverage and hotel and motel taxes. Many of the payments for local city taxes have been made available to pay online also, which has been convenient during this pandemic. This team also processes taxes that are paid by the state or county, including sales and income taxes that are remitted by the state, and property taxes, which is remitted by the county. Financial services also works with our external auditors on the annual financial audit and report, which I will discuss in more detail in the following slide. So how will the council interact with the finance department? This slide shows various financial reports and information which are an important part of our internal financial controls and which are sent to and are presented to City Council and City Management. These documents are also published on the city's website. So the first one here is we have the annual financial report, which is the result of the annual external audit. So this report is based on our fiscal year, which runs from July 1st through June 30th. It is presented to the council around January of each year, so it takes many months of review and preparation after year end to ensure its completeness. State law requires that every general purpose local government publish within 6 months at the close of each fiscal year a complete set of audited financial statements. So the annual financial report is an independent audit of the city's financials based on the modified accrual basis of accounting in accordance with audit standards generally accepted in the U.S. Once the auditors have completed the review of our financials, they express an opinion on whether our financials present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the city. The financial services team works closely with the external auditors, Baker Tilly, over many months in reviewing the financial statements and entries for the city. There are entries that are only prepared at year end to report the annual financial report on the modified basis of accounting and according with generally accepted accounting standards. So the modified accrual basis of accounting, that's specific to governmental entities, and the standards are set by the Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB. These standards are specific to governmental entities due to our focus on measuring the flow of current governmental resources and governmental fund financial statements and ensuring the availability that current resources are sufficient to finance current year spending. There are also standards established by the Government Finance Officer Association, GFOA, around the preparation and presentation of the annual financial report, and the report is evaluated by GFOA for the report's transparency and disclosures. We have received GFOA's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the last several years. So another important report is the quarterly financial report, which is presented to the council on the cash basis of accounting. So this report is based on financial activity that happens during that particular quarter. The quarterly report is important because review of periodic financial information and budgetary performance by management and the city council are important elements of our internal control system. This report contains analysis and comparison of the city's revenues, expenses, and investment activity, generally highlighting items relevant to the report that quarter. For example, the last quarterly report highlighted revenue impacts due to COVID. This report is emailed to council and also available on the city's website after the end of the quarter. We also have the monthly expenditures report, which shows vendor payments made that month. It contains the details of the payments, which include payee, name, date, and amount. It also shows the total amount of payroll paid to city employees and investment activity for the month. This report is also emailed to council and made available on our website. And then we have the fee schedule, which is presented to the council based on recommended changes to fees, which are coordinated among city departments, generally on an annual basis. City fees include business, building related, and parking licenses, permits, and fees. Urbana City Code requires that the proposed fee schedule be reviewed by the city council and put on file with the city clerk's office at least 30 days prior to the final action by the city council. And then last, we have the property tax levy. In November of each year, the city presents the estimated property tax levy for council approval, which happens in December. This is based on the assessed valuations of property and the city's tax rate. We focus on maintaining a stable tax rate over time. The city council must approve an estimated levy at least 20 days prior to adoption of the final levy. The city levies taxes for corporate purposes, so the general operating fund, and also for the library and police and fire pensions. The levies for specific purposes are approved by the city council when the final levy is approved. So these are the ways in which the finance department interacts with the city council. And next, Liz will discuss human resources.
Good evening, everyone. As Elizabeth said, my name is Liz Borman, and I am excited to be here tonight to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is human resources. So over on the HR side, we have 5 full-time employees. We have Elizabeth Hannon, who is the HR and Finance Director and CFO. We have Michelle Brooks, who is the Labor and Employee Relations Manager. We have Phoebe Fletcher, who is the HR Generalist. Aquina Lillard, who is the HR assistant, and then myself. So to start off, as far as our workforce goes, we average around 250 employees. This number tends to fluctuate a little. We typically have a little bit higher employment in the summer due to seasonal employees. And we also have a number of employee groups, such as union and non-union. We have full-time, part-time, regular, seasonal, temporary, and interns, and each group is a little different. So to start off with, one of the key functions that we oversee in HR is compensation and benefits. And for this function, we work very closely with the financial services team. And the recent reorganization that occurred in late 2019, early 2020, that shifted HR from executive to the finance department has really strengthened our relationship. And it has allowed us to really enhance our efficiency in several areas. We administer salaries for both union and non-union employees. Salaries for union employees are negotiated through the collective bargaining process, while non-union salaries are administered through our city's compensation plan. We have 3 unions here in the city. We have the Fraternal Order of Police, the International Association of Firefighters, and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, or AFSCME for short. And our unionized employees represent approximately 60% of our workforce. Last year, we began working with a consulting firm on a compensation and classification study of our non-union positions. The consultants are providing expertise in helping us to define a compensation philosophy, conducting a market study of comparable positions in like markets, developing a classification evaluation tool, and updating our performance evaluation metrics. We are also responsible for administering benefits for our employees and our retiree groups, and we assist the library in this as well. And Aquina Lillard, who is the HR assistant, she serves as the first point of contact for benefit questions. She handles enrollment and other matters relating to benefits, and then other general matters. The next function is safety and compliance. So this function includes administering programs like family and medical leave, the Fair Labor Standards Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and many others. And we also support the city's workplace safety program, and we work with our third-party administrator for our workers' compensation program. Next, we have recruitment and selection. So most of our recruitments are handled by our HR generalist, Amy Fletcher, and in our recruitments, we strive to source qualified and diverse candidates. And one way we do this is through our employment brand. And as Elizabeth mentioned earlier, having a strong employment brand is essential to attracting and retaining a talented and engaged workforce. Aspects of an employment brand include having an organization with a reputation for excellence, having inspiring leaders, offering a workforce that is inclusive and diverse, and one that provides opportunities for our employees to learn and grow within our organization. And we often hear when we're in job interviews that job candidates tell us they are interested in our positions, not only because, as Elizabeth said earlier, because of the job responsibilities, the pay, and the benefits, but because the community has such a significant role in what made them decide to apply. They often tell us how much they maybe enjoy visiting the market at the square or the library, or that they appreciate our commitment to sustainability, supporting the arts, and they want to be a part of a community that is so warm and welcoming and supportive to everyone. So having that strong employment brand that articulates these factors is so critically important. Next, we have organizational and employee development. So for professional development, what we want to do is to build our bench strength through learning opportunities for our employees. And one example of this is up until we were no longer able to meet in person, we were piloting a supervisor training program. And this program was open to all employees. And we had participation from department heads, very seasoned supervisors. We had new supervisors and people who were just interested in maybe being supervisors in the future. And furthering their leadership skills and understanding more about our organization. And we were able to come together and really have this fantastic learning opportunity. And one unexpected benefit of this training program was that it brought together employees who would not normally interact with each other, and it really enhanced our interdepartmental networking. So also as part of the compensation and class study, we are working towards establishing a comprehensive performance management program for our non-union employees. And this will incorporate developing performance expectations and then communicating what those are, measuring performance objectively and regularly, and providing candid, honest feedback on a regular basis. And we have set aside some funds to provide training for our supervisors on effectively communicating performance goals and expectations. And this again links back to our classification and compensation study. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have employee engagement. So when we talk about employee engagement, we are referring to a state where an individual finds purpose and meaning in the work that they do. They are highly motivated. They are consistently contributing at a high level. They care deeply about their work, the constituents that they serve, and they feel a strong connection to the organization. And one of the ways that we can support engagement is through what we call having a clear line of sight, where the employee understands the direct correlation between the work they do and the organization's goals. Next fiscal year, we plan to update our organizational values, and this will help to guide our work and support that clear line of sight. And there are also occasions when we may interface with our Labor and Employment Relations Manager, Michelle Brooks, over on the Labor and Employee Relations side.
Oops. So unfortunately, Michelle Brooks could not be with us tonight. So I am going to briefly cover her area. So Michelle is our primary representative on collective bargaining. And as Liz mentioned, we work with 3 unions: Fraternal Order of Police, International Association of Firefighters, and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. And that group includes most of our public works employees, as well as a few employees in police and finance. So she would normally either participate or lead negotiations, draft contract language. She's also the person where if we have questions about interpretation of contract language, she would assist with that. And she advises management on implementation of the contract. She also manages grievances filed by the unions and advises on resolution of grievances. She does some work with employee performance, so assisting with investigations into employee performance or violation of policies. And she would represent the city in any hearing related to performance of particular employees. So if, for example, we were to end up in arbitration or before the Civil Service Commission. She works closely with Liz, as there is a lot of overlap between those 2 areas. They both often are involved in, mediating disputes or disagreements, assisting with ADA matters, and so forth. She also is an attorney, and she assists us with making sure that we're compliant with all relevant state and federal laws. And she is actively involved in coordinating on workers' comp claims. So you will probably see Michelle when we have the opportunity to discuss labor negotiations, which we are currently planning to do in closed session on May 17th, as we have two contracts that one that we're currently negotiating and one that we will begin negotiating soon. And also then whenever a labor agreement is finalized, that would come to council for approval. So with that, I will move on to the administration piece. So In addition to being the department head and being responsible for everything we do, there are a few specific things that are my work assignments. And of course, I don't do any of those alone. So I am responsible for preparing the financial forecast and the annual budget. And you may have noticed on the org chart, we have a financial analyst position that is vacant right now, but I work closely with that person on both of those. So normally we update the financial forecast in the fall, and the budget process is a little more complicated, but that is well underway at this point, and you should expect to see the proposed budget on May 24th, and we are required by law to have a budget approved by the end of June. I will also note that last year, for the first time, we received the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, and we're very proud of that. So that was kind of a big deal for us. Throughout the year, we may bring amendments to the budget because not everything is predictable. So, we try to minimize that, but you may see us half a dozen times during the year bringing forward budget amendments. I am also responsible for the city's purchasing policies and approval of most purchases. Some larger purchases also require approval of the city administrator, and I also advise staff on questions about purchasing and how to comply with our purchasing policies. I also work in the risk management area, so I work with our insurance broker on our annual insurance renewals that happen in the fall. And I coordinate with our third-party administrator on significant liability claims, and also with our third-party administrator on workers' compensation claims, two different third-party administrators. I will also say this year, all of us, I think, which was unusual, spent quite a lot of time on COVID-related issues on the HR side of the house. There were multiple new policies. There were multiple changes to those new policies. And, for a long time, the situation was just changing very rapidly. So a lot of work on interim policies related to the pandemic, and also providing testing for city employees. So in terms of interaction with the city council, you will see a lot of me and other people during the budget review time. And so after we present the budget on May 24th, we'll probably have a couple of other topics that we'll discuss with the city council before we ask you to take a vote on the budget. Financial forecast also we review with the city council. Financial policies, which you would find near the front of the budget book, but we don't have any updates to those this year, but normally we would bring those to council for approval. So that's really the overall guidance that the city council gives us on how we should put the budget together. And then again, budget amendments, you'll see those throughout the year. So once again, the four sections we have: finance, human resources, labor and employee relations, and administration. So I'm happy to answer questions. I'm not sure if we're over time yet. So
Any questions? Oh, Grace.
Thank you. Thanks for the great presentation. Very well organized, and I loved the visuals. I had a question for Liz Borman, if I could, please. I liked mentioning in human resources, diversity and inclusion, and I was wondering what measures are being taken, if there are any, to be intentional about diversity and inclusion. Is that a concrete goal? do we have measures in place? Like, do we do affirmative action hiring and broadcasting, or any data on demographic information? Just kind of wondering how you do that.
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking that. So we are intentional about how we recruit and source our employees. That is very high on our radar. And I'll be honest, this is a very tight labor market. So we are always looking for new ways that we can source and attract, especially a diverse pool of applicants. We do look at metrics. We do analyze where we may, what our applicant pools look like. And then we're also reviewing what sources we use. So are there new sources? A few years ago, I was working on the firefighter recruiting, and someone suggested try radio. And I thought, really, radio? I was stunned at how effective radio was. So those suggestions, and especially if anyone has suggestions like, hey, have you ever thought of this? We really welcome those suggestions. But as far as analyzing our metrics, we certainly are looking at those always.
Do we track employees by any kind of demographic background or have an affirmative action policy?
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
Do we track data on city employees based on demographics like race, age, gender, socioeconomics? And do we have like a policy in place like affirmative action in hiring? I know you're doing a lot of those things, but just wondering if there's a concrete policy that you're using.
That's a great question. So we don't have a policy in place at this time. We do track the basic demographics. I don't believe that we're tracing socioeconomic status, but as far as the basic demographics, we certainly are.
Bill, did you have a question?
I just wanted to mention the open data site that we have too. I've used that quite a bit. It's good for tracking expenditures, kind of recent expenditures, but the main thing it does that the quarterly reports and monthly reports don't do is you're able to look at a single vendor, pull up one single vendor and see how much we've spent with that vendor, and over a period of at least a year. You can go back a couple years, I think. So I hope we continue that. I've used it a few times, and I think it kind of comes with our financial software, if I remember right. So if there's an easy way to continue that, I would hope you can do that.
Yeah, and I believe that the plan is to continue it. I don't think there's an end in sight for that.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing, Grace.
Sorry, one more follow-up for Liz too. Since you said you have that data, I was just wondering if that's shared or kind of what it looks like, if it's changed or if there's any trends.
I will be happy to look into that for you. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I want to get you the right data, so I'll be happy to look into that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none other, wish to thank you very much, and we'll move on to the next item in the agenda, which is public input. So if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. I see Bishop Underwood. Would you like to speak?
I'm unmuted now. This is Reverend Dr. Evelyn, and I'm on Bishop Underwood's phone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. My hand was up a long time ago, and so no, I can't say this much. Is that my hand was up for the other program when Danielle and her group was on the Cunningham Township. I had a question on that, but apparently no one saw my hand up or whatever. So I left it up. So I go ahead and speak since I can talk further about that issue, those issues relating to the garden and all, because I understand that they're gonna have some open meetings where individuals can come and have input at that time. So I'll wait until that time where I can talk about the issues that I was gonna bring up at that meeting. But for this, listen attentively about the input, the informational piece, the training that the different departments just gave us. I think it was very important, and we had some questions that I thought was very Miss Wilkins' questions. I like the questions that she asked. And that's all I'll say at this time. As I forestated, I will talk about the other issues at the upcoming meetings that they're gonna have for the public to give inputs about the gardens. And the gentleman that spoke before that, I heard only the last half of his speech, and I didn't get his name, but I'm sure I can go back and find that out. Thank you very much. I put my hand down now.
Thank you. Tracy Chong?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Tracy Chong. Since there's going to be a new cohort of council members very soon, I would like to say thank you to Council Member Jared Miller, who on numerous occasions spoke up, was often the lone voice among you guys whenever he saw something wrong. He asked critical questions, was always ready to have difficult conversations, and was open to hearing criticism and using it to strive to be better. I wish I could say the same for the rest of you council members and have remembered you guys as effective representatives of the residents who voted for you. Over the past year, we have brought up issues of police misconduct, which was even finally admitted, even though very quietly, by Chief Serafin. We have had rulings from the PAC that Urbana has broken state laws in FOIA and OMA matters due to the unethical advice and actions of city staff and Mayor Marlin. We have called for meaningful discussion to no avail. There has been no acknowledgement and apology by council members on the attack on Aaliyah Lewis. Meanwhile, after the muting and censorship of residents, there was no apology from all of you who were complicit with Mayor Marlin, but instead, till today, based on last week's and the weeks before the discussion, trying to make excuses that aren't even relevant to the reasons for the mutings. You choose to hide behind the excuse of lawsuits as directed by Mayor Marlin, even though you are elected officials who should put the public's interest first and foremost. I guess this is the legacy you leave behind as council members. Meanwhile, can Mayor Marlin or council members, any of you guys comment on where the city is regarding the City of Urbana and the Fraternal Order of Police contract? We would like to hear how discussions and decisions will be handled with the new council members. I look forward to hearing that. Thank you.
James Corbin.
Yes, okay, thank you. Can you hear me, Councilman?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, yeah, thank you. My name is James Corbin. I'm a Urbana resident, City of Urbana. And tonight I spoke earlier at the Township meeting, and I'm coming to you this evening about youth violence and youth violent prevention programs that I just want to put on everyone's radar, because we are experiencing increase in youth violence across the all cities at this time. And that's all, I believe, is COVID related. And it has a lot to do with a lack of activities for these young individuals who are out there now in the street without jobs and just, doing some non-productive items. And just to give you a little quick strategies that we could approach these youth violence situation and get a curve on it. I believe it was Councilmember Grace who spoke on this. And like she said, a lot of the direct funding, we could work, toward creating programs. We could look into providing quality education early in life. We could work with the preschool enrichment with family engagements, and we could also create protective community environments. I think that's more important that we kind of focus on protective community environments because the approach that we could use would be basically to modify the physical and social environments by creating activities and things for these youth to do. If we come with programs that involve with education, and these type of programs help me as a child of getting to know more of my own history and just building things on it, and as well as the youth programs like with Go Mad, Youth Build, what they doing teaching these skill sets. We could curb a lot of this violence and keep these kids off the street, or young individuals. I'm not going to say kids, I say young individuals off the street, and show them that there's another alternative. We also need to bring in programs early again to show the whole connection and how these individuals are part of the community, which is very important because someone who's out here committing crimes such as, taking another man's life, they are not seeing the entire picture. That's just clear right there. They can't see the entire picture because you would not be trying to, take out someone's life and at the same time risk yourself of getting time and going to jail and leaving your family behind. This makes no sense. So, and critical thinking. We need to bring in programs that would address critical thinking and how to de-escalate and not move on emotions. All these things need to be taken in consideration, and I would just like to just bring that to your awareness. Any funding that we could do to help strengthen these programs, such as through all the groups that's on the ground, like I said, First Followers, HVNT, whatever other group we have out here, and we got a lot of positive. We need to expand these now before it get warmer and then this situation start turning worse. I know I always sound the alarm, but I just want to bring this guys to your attention, and I appreciate your time and allow me to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sarah Nixon.
Okay, hello City Council, this is Sarah Nixon. I would just like to comment briefly first about Reverend Underwood's attempt to give public comment at the Cunningham Township meeting. I think the city owes her the opportunity to speak, and I think it would be appropriate to address that oversight or lapse by inviting her back now if she's listening, and invite her to speak her mind and provide the public input that she would have liked to give at the township meeting. I also echo her concerns or related concerns that the garden project must prioritize engagement and inclusion of the community establishments that are long established in that little corner of Urbana, and that it really go the extra mile in inviting them to the table, to the planning sessions, and to the actual execution and maintenance of the garden and enjoyment of the garden, the community garden. I would also like to echo Tracy Chong's comments to the council about the changing of the guard that is imminent. I don't think I could express anything more eloquently, clearly, and with better detail and research and thoughtfulness as Ms. Chong habitually does. So I won't attempt to. I would really like to thank Mr. Miller for the exact same reasons that Ms. Chong covered. And I'd like to thank the other council members who are departing for their service in my own humble way as a community member. I certainly appreciate everybody on the board as much of a nuisance as you may consider me to be. I'm here because I care. I care about the community. I care about the issues that are before you folks every week, and I care about good government. But I also very much respect all the effort, time, and very hard work that all of you have put in, regardless of our differences of opinion on contentious and really, what's the word, intense issues, if you will, in particular regarding the Urbana Police Department's conduct, or more accurately, misconduct in a number of areas. And I think that wraps it up. Thanks for listening. And again, thank you to the departing council members.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak tonight? I don't see any other hands. Oh, hold on. Let's see. Nope. Let's see. Nope. Okay. So if there's no one else who wishes to speak, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Staff reports. Are there any staff reports? Don't see any. Oh, Mayor. You're muted.
Sorry. A couple of quick things to report. This past week, we held interviews for finalists for the Human Rights and Equity Officer position. And I hope to be able to announce a person in that position shortly, but we're working on that this week and the next week. So excellent candidates, and I'm very happy with the folks who have applied. Just wanted to let the public know we are in the second week of rolling out the new telephone system, which is a complete replacement of the phone system in the city, which was over 20 years old. So this is a big improvement in internal communication as well as external communication with the public. We're still working through some bugs, so we ask people to have patience, but this will also support our ability to continue working remotely and provide a whole lot more flexibility going forward. So this is a huge undertaking, largely led by the IT department, and I wanted to thank them for their efforts there. We continue to meet on the use of force policy, and we hope to be finalizing that within the next few weeks, and we'll be bringing that to council to report on that. And then again, we are having conversations about summer youth programming in relation to the recent uptake in community violence, but also the importance of programming in general for kids over the summertime. So we're meeting on that topic as well. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, we have a resolution number 2021-04-019R, a resolution approving the City of Urbana and Champaign County Home Consortium FY 2021 Annual Action Plan /CD. Is Lori introducing this?
Sheila will be, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Sheila Dodd, Manager of the Grants Management Division. The annual action plan is brought to you about this time every year, and it's to address needs that were identified in the 5-year plan. So in June of last year, Council approved the 2024 5-year consolidated plan. We did an extensive public input session, identified needs, and then these next 5 years, we will outline what we can do to address those needs. This year, our allocation identified by HUD is $819,687 in home funding. Urbana is the lead entity for that grant, and we share it proportionally with the consortia, which is City of Champaign, Champaign County, and the City of Urbana, and we split it based on population size. We are required by HUD to set aside 15% for a community housing development organization. which this next year will be about $123,000. Currently, we have 2 approved CHOTOs, First Followers and Habitat for Humanity. And so we will be bringing back in the fall agreements that they'll be providing on how they can address affordable housing needs. We also have the choice to set aside operating money, and we did set aside 5% this year to be allocated to those 2 agencies to help them with capacity building and implementation of their CHOTO projects. The CDBG federal allocation this year was $516,972. And looking at our budget, we have a prior year unexpended allocation of about $225,000, and then an unallocated COVID balance of $75,000. We're allowed to set aside 20% of the allocation for administrative costs. We have a cap of 5% for public services, and I put the $75,000 of COVID money into this public service line item. I don't have any unmet needs identified yet, but we are still doing outreach, trying to capture any agency that is not getting funding from other sources that we can address maybe some of their concerns or capacity building. And then the final category is the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. We've set aside about $443,000 to be used for capital improvement projects. In the 2020-2024 consolidated plan, in the surveys that we did throughout the community, infrastructure was the biggest concern that everyone had. And while, again, we don't have an identified project at this time, we will work closely with Public Works to see where our funds can fit into the community. We set aside $85,000 to do emergency accessibility and senior repair programs. We're working closely with Ameren this year to design an energy efficiency program where between their funds and our funds, we can hopefully make a big difference in some of our older housing stock. And then finally, we set aside a small amount of money for property acquisition, demolition, new construction. While we don't have any identified projects, by putting this in here, if something comes up, it allows us to respond quickly and not have to go and amend the plan. That's a quick overview of the budget and the process. Does anyone have any questions?
Mary Alice?
Thank you, Sheila, for that overview. I had a kind of variety of questions, and hopefully I'm reading the report correctly. One thing that I was curious about was we've in the past sponsored neighborhood cleanups, and I know that the funds for neighborhood cleanups has dwindled. So I did notice that under public service, the neighborhood cleanups would be funded under that. So will that be restored to what we previously had funding for?
Actually, I increased it. In the past, we spent between $5,000 to $7,000, but since we didn't do one last year due to COVID, I'm anticipating I'll probably do 2. And currently, we're looking at doing one in the fall because I'm hoping that we're somewhat COVID safe by then, and then we may do one in the spring again too, depending on need.
Also, there was some information on down payment assistance, and I was wondering how the public would find out about that program.
When we don't have a program designed at this point, but we're in the process of talking to lenders because that's been identified as a need again this year. And when we launch it, we will launch it through the local lenders, realtors, and put postings on our website and try to get it up. But in the past, the best way to get that information out is to those people who are making the loans. You know, makes a big difference to them.
I guess my concern is if people don't think that they have enough money for a down payment, then they're not going to go and see if they are pre-approved for a loan. So reaching out to the public through neighborhood groups or so forth, just letting people know that we have a program that's been developed to help people offset the down payment, I think would be good to capture
Sure.
some of that population. And then I also noticed that there was something about a discrimination testing program. Is that something that's also being worked on?
Not this year. That is our fair housing testing.
Mhm.
And so as we get our feet back underneath us from COVID, we may reach out and work with some interns who, how I've seen it done in the past is they just do random calls and see if one group of people is treated different than another group of people. But the last administration set all of our fair housing initiatives on hold and directed funding to go towards the other programs. So hopefully this will come back in and be a priority in this next administration.
Okay, and then my final question has to do with the public input. If I read that correctly, nobody provided public input on the plan. Is that correct?
That's correct, except I shouldn't say that. Agencies did, but we had 3 public hearings. We had a public input meeting that we advertised through the listserv of our neighborhood organizations, and no one attended those. And unfortunately, I was hoping with a virtual that we would be able to get more attendance because that's kind of been other communities' experience. But typically we don't get a lot of public input, and I'd like to find ways to get more or to do different outreach.
So, given that we didn't really have any public input in this time period, I know that we've done updates to the program throughout. This is a 4 or 5 year document. I'm wondering after COVID restrictions are lifted, if it would be possible to hold at least 1 or 2 kind of public hearings, maybe at churches or something to get more input. I'm just wondering if the fact that it was virtual was not, people weren't able to necessarily participate. So that's just a thought. It's not anything in terms of.
Sure.
Okay.
And Mary Alice, in the fall, when we bring our performance report, because we have to report in the fall what we did for the prior year, we will be doing or trying to do outreach and public input then. So hopefully we will have participation.
Okay, those are my questions. Thanks, Sheila.
Dennis, and then
Yeah,
Sharice, there you are.
thanks. Actually, Mary Alice was very effective, and she covered one of my topics that I was interested in asking about. And again, also concerning the public input, I did notice that of the 4 different meetings, you didn't have anybody come out to discuss. Of course, I thought about doing public input, but I thought, well, I'll be able to do some public input during the city council meetings when it comes up. I guess that's my time to comment. One of the things that you might consider doing, and maybe you can tell me if this was something that you pursued, was to engage the neighborhood committees, the neighborhood action committees or the associations, to talk about the needs within their areas, like the WUNA, the SUNA, and the HUNA neighborhood community would probably host a meeting with you to discuss issues if you'd want that to happen.
Sure, we did invite them, Dennis, to the March virtual meeting at the request of some of our community development commissioners.
Mhm.
And I was surprised that we didn't get anybody to participate, in particular WUNA, because one of our commissioners is from that neighborhood.
Mhm.
So we'll just have to continue to do the best we can for outreach. We do have an opportunity to hit our service providers at the meetings that we attend on a monthly basis, as well as our community reinvestment group, which is lenders. But I feel like they're a broader picture, and I really would like to get public input from the community.
Does it work against the proposals that you are trying to have approved through these federal agencies when they see that public input was so small or zero?
No, unfortunately, we are not a minority in that case. It's just, it's a concern that a lot of communities struggle with. And this year, HUD has even issued us guidance that they understand with COVID, they anticipate it'll be less participation than normal. So, but no, it doesn't, because we will bring back to you, like we have recently, the first followers agreement and the healthcare consumers. So those more specific topics, people will have an opportunity to come back and talk about.
Do you include public comment during these meetings that we're having today, for example, from the individuals who, is that considered a legal or an applicable public input into these programs?
Yes, it's because it was a part of the minutes. It'll be a part of the minutes. We will include it in this.
Okay, great. Thanks, then.
Cherise?
I was just wondering, because we often talk about affordable housing, and I know you have some monies set aside for that. And regarding the homeless population and trying to transition them into more permanent habitation of some sort. So I guess my question is, what kind of programs or what kind of funds do we have set aside for fees such as like security deposits or first and last months? I don't rent, but I know that these can be barriers to people actually finding at least an apartment, so that they can start to become a non-homeless person. Do we have any kind of anything that helps people with that?
We don't have anything specific in this year's budget. We did, with our COVID funding, we did provide rent assistance. HUD is very specific on what they call those subsidy payments, where we can offer up to 3 months assistance. And then we have to ensure that they have the ability to stay current. You know, they don't want us to help someone that there just isn't any way they could make month 4. But during COVID and really on a regular basis, Champaign County, City of Champaign, Village of Rantoul, we all meet on for a while, it was every other week, on rent assistance and utility assistance and who was getting what money and how we could, have the biggest bang for our buck and get those funds out there to help people. So this last round of rent assistance that the county's administering, I had over 100 applications. And while I could only help with 3 months rent, I sent a letter and an email to those people saying, hey, there's this other opportunity to help you even further. We just learned at a meeting this week that if somebody qualifies for LIHEAP, even if they don't need it right now, we should all encourage them to apply, because if they get behind between now and May 31st, there may be some flexibility for those who are in the LIHEAP program. So, we share information, we share resources, we try to do the best that we can. And then with the city's portion of COVID, we helped almost 60 families stay into housing.
Okay, but there's nothing that can help people with the transitioning. I mean, as far as even if because one of the most difficult issues I know with even getting a job so that you can do that is having an address.
Right.
So
and we are working, or we're going to be bringing to you soon the Emergency Solutions Grant. Cunningham Township is going to be awarded funding, and we're going to act as the administrator. So we did that with them for this year's funding. They have a rapid rehousing program that Danielle can talk more specifically about. But by the city of Urbana acting as the administrator, it allows the township to access those funds. So that's the type of cooperation I'm talking about. They they can offer that rapid rehousing, get people into housing on a temporary basis while they're helping them get SSI or, help them with whatever they happen to need, whether it's financial coaching or job search and then, with First Followers, some of the funding that we gave them is for that same type of thing where they can help people get a cell phone so that they can have access to do job interviews, help them with clothing so that they can, dress appropriately for a job interview. So while we may not directly provide it at the city, we help fund those type of things.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Thanks, Sheila. Oh, Mary Alice,
No, I was just going to make a motion if that's okay.
please do.
All right, I move resolution number 2021-04019R, resolution approving the City of Urbana and Champaign County Home Consortium fiscal year from 2021 to 2022 annual action plan to City Council with a recommendation for approval.
Is there a
Second.
second? So moved by Mary Alice and seconded by Dennis. Any further discussion?
Is that going to the consent agenda?
Well, since there's nothing else on the agenda, I figured it doesn't need to go to the consent agenda.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Sachs,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. Colebrook,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
That motion carries. So our next item on the agenda is council input and communication. Dennis?
Yes, I've got three things I'd like to comment on. First, I'd like to have James Corbin contact me. I'd like to have his contact information. I thought his comments were very good, and I would like to communicate with him. So if he would please contact me, my city council email address is on the website. Second, I'd like to just let everybody know that our Urbana Sister City program is sending myself to the Illinois Sister Cities Association annual meeting. It's going to be on Friday, April 23rd. It's being hosted by Palatine, Illinois. It's going to be mostly a Zoom meeting, but being on the board of directors, I will need to be there because we're going to be voting on additional members to the board and making some other kinds of board decisions for the state. And also there's going to be the announcement of the Sister City of the Year and the Champion of Youth Awards. I act as the award chairman for the board, so I'll be introducing those winners at the meeting. So if you're interested in attending, it's possible to attend by Zoom, but you need to talk to me so that I can forward to you the information. And lastly, you probably know and remember that over the last 6 months, the Urbana Sister City program has been working with the city of Thionville on a music video collaboration. And I'd just like to let everybody know that we're approaching completion of that collaboration, and we expect to have an announcement coming forward in early May. I think it's going to be a very important announcement, and please stay tuned. There'll be more information coming from the mayor's office on this event. We're very excited about it, and so are the people in Thionville. Thank you very much. Those are the comments I'd like to share tonight.
Anybody else wish to speak? Bill?
Yeah, I think this week is the yard waste pickup week. So remind your neighborhood groups that we have 1 week to put out yard waste in the spring, and this is it. Put it out on your recycling day. And then there's also a Rosecrans is starting to have community co-responder meetings. So I wonder if we could get word out to people, other providers they want to participate in that. It's a Zoom link, so I can't really read it, but maybe the city could put it on the webpage or something. That's all.
Anybody else on council wish to speak? Mary Alice? And
I
then
just wanted
Jerry?
to just wanted to say that somebody had asked about the police union contract, and I know that that's still under conversation and that we don't have really any update, but we're not at a point, to the best of my knowledge, in which we're going to be discussing or even approving contracts. So the new council is my best guess in terms of who would be approving that contract.
Jared?
Yeah, I was wondering if the mayor had any updates on COVID and what's going on in our region, or any word from PhD on where we're headed or how we're doing, even here locally.
Mayor, I think you're muted. Yeah.
Sorry, I lost the screen there for a minute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We'll get an update at our meeting tomorrow, but at this point, we're still in phase 4. The trends in the state and actually in the region, as far as new cases, have not been headed in the direction that the governor needed to change, you know, even to head into the bridge period. So we're still in phase 4. We have not made any decisions yet on what the policy will be on public event permits. I know some people are very interested in that, but we will be working jointly with the city of Champaign to make decisions in that area. We did hear that, you probably read, that there will be no 4th of July parade, but there will be fireworks modified anyway on the U of I campus. The announcement was welcome news today that the Urbana School District is working with the Public Health District to host a vaccination clinic for kids 16 and older. So students at Urbana High School will be able to get, they're hosting a vaccination clinic for the Urbana High School students. So that's really welcome news. The advice, the main advice is anybody who can possibly get vaccinated, we strongly encourage people to get vaccinated, because that is the only way we are going to emerge from this pandemic. And we're slowly working our way toward that, but we expect to get more vaccines in this coming week, or I believe this week actually. So anyone who's got access to the vaccines should try to get it. Did you have a specific question?
I was just going to add on, due to my wife's role of working with the vaccine stuff at Carl, I do know that they got an unexpected addition of about 5,000 Moderna and Pfizer doses for this week that they were not expecting to get. Some of those are going to go to second doses, but as of today, there were still hundreds and hundreds of appointments that were open with Carl from tomorrow through Saturday, when they're going to have the clinics open on the weekend. So you don't need to be a Carl patient to sign up. If anybody is listening, they can start a record for you if you want to get a vaccine from Carl. But those are also, I mean, OSF's got them. Everybody's got a plethora right now. And really the problem is we're not getting enough people to sign up. So I just wanted to also say that, but yeah, folks should know there's lots of appointments open right now to get signed up for first doses.
That's really great news. And that's the kind of thing that happens. You just find out at the last minute. You know, people don't get much warning in terms of how much vaccine is coming to the community. So, but when we do get it, it's really important to use as much as we possibly can. So.
Sure, Cherise?
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on Jared and Mayor Marlin, I just wanted to say regarding the particular vaccination issue is, I think we're not imaginative enough on a county level in that, maybe instead of having people have to, and this is regarding Carl as well, sign up for appointments. We may need to actually, I know we've been having these clinics at this place and that place, and you just kind of have to go where the people are. Not everyone is able to take off work. Not everyone is willing to take off work to go in and get a shot. And there's something that we're missing somewhere, I believe, as a community regarding the education with vaccinations, as well as the accessibility, because people still have to sign up on Sign Up Genius and stuff like that. But if you don't have a computer, or if you're not computer literate, and believe it or not, there are plenty of people that aren't, because you have a generation of folks that didn't need computers. We just did it. We have to, I think, I don't know how to go about this, but I do think that is a huge gulf in getting people signed up. So all I can say is that if you know someone that needs a vaccination and they're not capable, or they haven't been able to sign up or whatever, try to help them sign up any kind of way. And this is for people, all the people that in public that are listening even to this meeting right now. Try to help your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, your sister, your brother, your dad, your mom, whoever, get signed up in any way possible, because we still haven't figured out a way to help those who are not able to understand how that goes. I would just like to say, like my mom has been vaccinated since January, and on her portal on Carl, they still telling her to get an appointment for her vaccination. And every time we've gone to the doctor, I've told them she's fully vaccinated, and so am I. And so I know that I know what Jared is kind of talking about as far as there being all of these openings. And maybe we need to reconsider the fact that maybe if you have walk-ins, just do it, instead of them actually having to do an appointment. Just if you have a walk-in, vaccinate. If people willing to do it, do it. So that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak from council?
I do have.
Mayor?
I just wanted to say thank you to a couple of neighborhoods who sponsored cleanups this weekend. The Savannah Green neighborhood collected 52 bags of trash in their neighborhood cleanup. It made a huge difference, and they worked very hard, and I wanted to recognize them for doing that, as well as the Historic East Urbana Neighborhood Association, I believe, sponsored a neighborhood cleanup as well. So this makes a big difference in the appearance of the city, and really reflects, the fact that people care about their neighborhoods and makes our environment a little bit nicer for everyone. So just a great appreciation to the people who did that, and to the Public Works Department who supported those efforts by supplying the materials and then picking up the accumulated garbage. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing no further comments, I think this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
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 Bye.
Good night.